The Sceptic by David Hume. Continued. Though the tempers of men be very different, yet we may safely pronounce in general that a life of pleasure cannot support itself so long as one of business, but is much more subject to satiety and disgust. The amusements, which are the most durable, have all a mixture of application and attention in them, such as gaming and hunting, and in general, business and action fill up all the great vacancies in human life. But where the temper is the best disposed for any enjoyment, the object is often wanting, and in this respect, the passions, which pursue external objects, contribute not so much to happiness as those which rest in ourselves, since we are neither so certain of attaining such objects, nor so secure in possessing them. A passion for learning is preferable, with regard to happiness, to one for riches. Some men are possessed of great strength of mind, and even when they pursue external objects are not much affected by a disappointment, but renew their application and industry with the greatest cheerfulness. Nothing contributes more to happiness than such a turn of mind. According to this short and imperfect sketch of human life, the happiest disposition of mind is the virtuous, or in other words, that which leads to action and employment, renders us sensible to the social passions, steels the heart against the assaults of fortune, reduces the affections to a just moderation, makes our own thoughts an entertainment to us, and inclines us rather to the pleasures of society and conversation than to those of the senses. This, in the meantime, must be obvious to the most careless reasoner, that all dispositions of mind are not alike favorable to happiness, and that one passion or humor may be extremely desirable, while another is equally disagreeable. And indeed, all the difference between the conditions of life depends upon the mind, nor is there any one situation of affairs in itself preferable to another. Good and ill, both natural and moral, are entirely relative to human sentiment and affection. No man would ever be unhappy could he alter his feelings. Proteus-like, he would elude all attacks by the continual alterations of his shape and form. But of this resource nature has in a great measure deprived us. The fabric and constitution of our mind no more depends on our choice than that of our body. The generality of men have not even the smallest notion that any alteration in this respect can ever be desirable. As a stream necessarily follows the several inclinations of the ground on which it runs, so are the ignorant and thoughtless part of mankind actuated by their natural propensities. Such are effectually excluded from all pretensions to philosophy, and the medicine of the mind so much boasted. But even upon the wise and thoughtful, nature has a prodigious influence, nor is it always in a man's power by the utmost art and industry to correct his temper and attain that virtuous character to which he aspires. The empire of philosophy extends over a few, and with regard to these two, her authority is very weak and limited. Men may well be sensible of the value of virtue, and may desire to attain it, but it is not always certain that they will be successful in their wishes. Whoever considers without prejudice the course of human actions will find that mankind are almost entirely guided by constitution and temper, and that general maxims have little influence but so far as they affect our taste or sentiment. If a man have a lively sense of honor and virtue, with moderate passions, his conduct will always be conformable to the rules of morality, or if he depart from them, his return will be easy and expeditious. On the other hand, where one is born of so perverse a frame of mind, of so callous and insensible a disposition, as to have no relish for virtue and humanity, no sympathy with his fellow creatures, no desire of esteem and applause, such a one must be allowed entirely incurable, nor is there any remedy in philosophy. He reaps no satisfaction but from low and sensual objects, or from the indulgence of malignant passions. He feels no remorse to control his vicious inclinations. He has not even that sense or taste which is requisite to make him desire a better character. For my part, I know not how I should address myself to such a one, or by what arguments I should endeavor to reform him. Should I tell him of the inward satisfaction which results from laudable and humane actions, the delicate pleasure of disinterested love and friendship, the lasting enjoyments of a good name and an established character, he might still reply that these were, perhaps, pleasures to such as were susceptible of them, but that, for his part, he finds himself of a quite different turn and disposition. I must repeat it. My philosophy affords no remedy in such a case, nor could I do anything but lament this person's unhappy condition. But then I ask, if any other philosophy can afford a remedy, or if it be possible by any system to render all mankind virtuous, however perverse may be their natural frame of mind. Experience will soon convince us of the contrary, and I will venture to affirm that perhaps the chief benefit which results from philosophy arises in an indirect manner, and proceeds more from its secret, insensible influence than from its immediate application. It is certain that a serious attention to the sciences and liberal arts softens and humanizes the temper, and cherishes those fine emotions in which true virtue and honor consists. It rarely, very rarely happens that a man of taste and learning is not at least an honest man, whatever frailties may attend him. The bent of his mind to speculative studies must mortify in him the passions of interest and ambition, and must at the same time give him a greater sensibility of all the decencies and duties of life. He feels more fully a moral distinction in characters and manners, nor is his sense of this kind diminished, but, on the contrary, it is much increased by speculation. Besides such insensible changes upon the temper and disposition, it is highly probable that others may be produced by study and application. The prodigious effects of education may convince us that the mind is not altogether stubborn and inflexible, but will admit of many alterations from its original make and structure. Let a man propose to himself the model of a character, which he approves. Let him be well acquainted with those particulars in which his own character deviates from this model. Let him keep a constant watch over himself, and bend his mind, by a continual effort, from the vices towards the virtues, and I doubt not but, in time, he will find in his temper an alteration for the better. Habit is another powerful means of reforming the mind, and implanting in it good dispositions and inclinations. A man who continues in a course of sobriety and temperance will hate riot and disorder. If he engage in business or study, indolence will seem a punishment to him. If he constrain himself to practice beneficence and affability, he will soon abhor all instances of pride and violence. Where one is thoroughly convinced that the virtuous course of life is preferable, if he have but resolution enough for some time to impose a violence on himself, his reformation needs not be despaired of. The misfortune is that this conviction and this resolution never can have place, unless a man be, beforehand, tolerably virtuous. Here, then, is the chief triumph of art and philosophy. It insensibly refines the temper, and it points out to us those dispositions which we should endeavor to attain by a constant bent of mind and by repeated habit. Beyond this I cannot acknowledge it to have great influence, and I must entertain doubts concerning all those exhortations and consolations which are in such vogue among speculative reasoners. Thank you for listening. Until next time, pleasant dreams.